Hey friends. I had kind of an interesting insight this morning, and it's as seems to be happening frequently. I'll get like something will flash, and then for the next few days, that'll kind of be the theme. Even though I don't do that on purpose at all, it just seems to be the way these insights work. But so I had an experience this morning. I'm sitting in meditation and I was thinking about the music that I'm working on piano. I'm working on the Chopin études, and I was thinking about I have a kind of a smattering of them now that none of them really I consider performance ready, but they're all kind of they're in various phases of coming into focus. And I started to get ambitious. I started to think, oh, well, maybe I can get the whole first set in the next 6 to 9 months or something. I started to just think through, like, how can I just started to get ambitious, basically. And this is kind of in conjunction with a phase, because I was talking maybe 2 days ago about creative cycles and the kind of sense of sometimes we're on the high point of a cycle where everything feels great and it just feels like our energy is flowing and everything is, we're kind of on top of the world, so to speak. And then there are the low points in the cycle where it feels like we're just kind of working and not getting anywhere, or it takes a lot of work to get not a lot of progress. There's a kind of, a low point in the cycle. I think if we've done any kind of creative work or any kind of practice, we probably have some sense of what those kind of like various experiences are. But I've been recently in a phase where for a while there, it was like I just couldn't wait to get to the piano. I just could not. All I wanted to do was sit down and practice. And I made a bunch of really great progress in there. And then I got to a point where it was like, okay, now I just kind of have to show up for a couple days. Like today, it was like I didn't have that same urge to be at the instrument. Now, luckily, I have learned that means nothing as far as whether or not I should be showing up. Just show up. But it registered with me that, like, oh, okay, now I'm getting to maybe a little bit that lower point on the cycle where it feels like I'm spinning my wheels or doing a bunch of work and not getting anywhere. But I know better than to take those feelings at their word, because very often that's where some of the deepest work is happening. Anyway, so that's kind of where I've been for the last few days, and I talked about it on a post a day or two ago. But today, as I had that moment of getting ambitious, where I was like, ooh, I see where this can go, I realized I made a connection between the point in the cycle that I'm on right now, which is kind of like a lower point, although I think that as of yesterday, perhaps, I'm kind of maybe coming up, I'm kind of on the upswing again. But between that lowish point on the cycle and a particular like attachment to a musical outcome. So in other words, as I got ambitious with thinking about how great it'll be when I learn all these pieces or whatever, how much more technically proficient I'll be when I've mastered them. I'm having these visualizations of where I'm going to go. And I recognized, oh, I have kind of given up for a moment the deep core. And I don't mean that I've jettisoned it. I just mean it's drifted from my focus, and temporarily I've become focused on the musical outcome, the kind of like more concrete, the derivative. And that correlates to being on a low point in the cycle, because that's what, because the only reason that there even is a cycle is because I'm attached to that outcome. If I weren't attached to the outcome, I probably wouldn't even experience the cycle. There would be no high-low cycle. There would just be the practice every day. The only thing that makes it have this cyclical, these highs and lows, the boom and bust of our interior experience, is our attachment. And of course, this is exactly what all the gurus and all the great teachers and all the traditions say, which is that it's our attachment that puts us in a place of samsara, right? In the Hindu tradition, samsara is the wheel of cause and effect. If we are invested in the causes and effects of our practice or of anything in our life, then we're gonna be on the wheel. We're gonna be then as the wheel moves, we are going to move with it, because we can't help but move with it, because we're invested in the concrete aspects of the wheel. When we actually, so in other words, if that priority shift that I noticed in myself, where I went from a place of deeper kind of prioritizing, a deeper, for lack of a better word, spiritual or infinite presence, into prioritizing this concrete thing, this, the fruits of my practice, that ties me to the wheel. So now, when the wheel goes up, I go up. When the wheel goes down, I go down. I'm not free anymore. Now I'm doing whatever the wheel does. But it was interesting to notice the relationship between my experience of the cycle, which I was definitely having, and precisely what I was focused on that in those moments, and what kind of in noticing that connection between what's my focus doing and what's my experience doing, because those two things are like that's everything. Where am I putting my attention? My attention is always on the infinite awareness of the cosmos. I'm always free. There's nothing in the world that can force me, that can control me, that can compel me to do anything that I don't choose to do. But of course, all of us, to some degree, we get hooked. We hitch a ride on the wheel, and now we're going for a ride. Now we just get to do what that wheel does. And but there's something about this experience that I had this morning where I was kind of like, there was just a moment where I saw the mechanism of it, because that's something that can feel very philosophical and abstract. Oh, it's our attachment that hitches us to the wheel of samsara, right? Like, what does that even mean if you don't have tangible experience to connect what's being said in that philosophy or in that mystical wisdom, and actually literally what is happening to us right now in this moment? So that was the thing that was kind of kind of a revelation this morning, was like, oh, I see. Here's where my focus is. And here's what my recent experience has been. Now I get why this has been my experience, because this is what I'm focusing on. And as I then, focus is the thing that I can control. My experience, I can potentially control what happens in my internal experience, but I can't control what happens in my external experience. And a lot of my experience comes from the external. A lot of what happens to me in a day is not coming from only within me. It's coming from the world. I'm engaging with an entire universe. So if that experience side of the coin is going to do what it does, that wheel is going to turn however it turns. But my focus is the thing that I can actually control. That's the thing where I can actually decide, yeah, sure, the wheel's turning, but that doesn't mean I have to watch it. I don't have to go like this. Why would I want to go like this when I could step back and see the whole thing? Right? Why would I use my own focus to shackle myself into bondage? There's no reason why I would do that, other than it's just habitual, or to some extent our karma creates a proclivity, or a kind of there's a resonance, and processing our karma is actually noticing consciously what's happening, and accepting our experience from a place of surrender and consciousness, rather than from a place of evaluating whether it's good or bad, and then gravitating towards the things we like and then repelling from the things we don't like. And just, we're living in cause and effect, and we become cause and effect. Our own awareness then is bound by the laws of cause and effect, and we can't be free in that context. There is no freedom in the laws of cause and effect. There's just cause and effect. So it was just a moment where I felt a sense of relief at having identified something that I was doing with my focus, kind of seeing a mechanism at work that I understand philosophically, and that I've even seen happen. I've even seen this mechanism before, but it was just a reminder. And then having just a moment of having the wherewithal to say, okay, now I see what's happening. Now I can kind of choose. Now I can actually pick where my focus goes next. I can decide to sit down at the piano today and put my focus in a very different place. Oftentimes that's what's happened. That's what happens when I sit down in a lesson with Madeline. Is I've had 2 weeks where my focus has kind of drifted from that place, and then in the first 2 bars of me playing, she's like, "No, stop, go back, do this," and I kind of go, but I've just spent 2 weeks doing it differently. What do you mean? And then I breathe through my frustration, and I go, oh, right, yeah, now I'm back. And then ideally I can keep, eventually I'll be able to do that seamlessly for 2 weeks into my next lesson. That's what we're working towards. But it's always fun to feel like we've identified some of our own, the ways that we in our particular, who we are, go off track, because it just gives me the feeling, oh, okay, well now I know how to identify it. Maybe I can catch it earlier. Maybe I can bring myself on track, because I know what it feels like to be on track. It's not that I don't know that. It's just that I have a lifetime of experience of doing it differently. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Love you, appreciate you. It's conversation is deeply important to me. So thankful, so grateful. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.